good, bad. I'm the guy with the gun.
See this? This is my boomstick!
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of Hun Year Geek is showing. And on this week's episode, we are covering 80s horror. Ooh, ha, ha, ha,
Whoa.
ha, ha. I am, as always, your wonderful, brilliant, lovely host. I blow my own trumpet. Callista Valentine. And joining me, as always, is some random guy, Jessup Braithwaite. How you doing, Han?
Hello, everyone. I feel like shit.
Oh, you
I
got
soldier
the lurgy. You got the lurgy.
I have, but it's not COVID, by the way. I tested.
Thank God for that. I've had a little bit of a sore throat and a bad chest the last couple of days, but I know the difference between that and having COVID, having had it several months ago. Hence, part of my little hibernation thing I did. But yeah, so 80s horror. Here we go then. This is just going to be kind of a brief episode because it's 80s horror. Everybody knows everything about it anyway. So we're just going to give our thoughts and feelings on it. My introduction to 80s horror really was, I think like most kids of my generation, was either they had older siblings that watched it, they had parents that watched it, that kind of thing. And you were always like, coming downstairs for a drink at stupid o'clock in the morning, your parents are watching Freddy Krueger or Hannibal Lecter or something like that. And you happen to walk past the TV and inevitably see things you probably shouldn't have seen at that age.
Boobies.
Yeah. Well, there's the one thing that stood out for me in films I probably shouldn't have watched at that age was RoboCop. And there's a lot in RoboCop that a young child shouldn't see. But the one thing that tipped it over the edge for me, like I knew watching it that like the bit where the guy gets blasted by Ed 209, I knew in my head, even as a kid, I was like, that's all special effects. It's not real. It's all fake.
Yeah.
But the one bit that really pushed the boundary of how good
I know where you're going
is the melting dude after the top.
Yeah.
I saw that as a kid and I had nightmares for weeks. And that led me on a little, I wouldn't say obsession, more just a sort of a general intrigue throughout my life of how special makeup effects are done. And you cannot mention 1980s horror without mentioning the maestro, the man himself, the king of splatter, Mr. Tom Savini. And I followed his career quite, passionately. His remake of Night of the Living Dead, chef's kiss, brilliant. It's not the film he wanted to make, but the film that he did make is fucking fantastic. It's how a remake should be done. But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves there. But yeah, Mr. Tom Savini, he did special effects for such wonderful, wonderful films as Friday the 13th.
Yes.
And considering that we recently just passed Friday the 13th, due to technical hitches, we're recording on a later day than we normally do, everybody. Sorry.
Yeah.
But Friday the 13th. Have you seen it, Guy? And if you have seen it, how many have you seen? I've seen them all.
I've not seen them all. I've seen up to 6, I believe.
Well, I've got the rest of them. You're welcome to borrow them.
Oh, lovely. That film's got more sequels than bloody Police Academy.
It's got 10 mainline entries, number 1 to X. It's got a remake from 2010. You've got Freddy versus Jason from, I want to say 05. I could be wrong. I think my dates are a little bit off there. It's not off the top of my head. Okay,
It's in the noughties, I'm sure.
Hold on. DVD case. I'll check it.
Throw it in your Google machine, folks.
My crappy fucking eyesight. It doesn't actually say on the back of the box, and if it does, it's too small for me to fucking read it.
God damn, it's a good job this isn't on Spotify. I'd be really sucking.
Your date printed somewhere on this. 2005.
Hey.
So I was right. At least that's the
Give
date.
the lady a gold star.
That's the date that's on the receipt that was in the box. So it could be 2005. It could be earlier. We're not sure. But yeah, I mean, Tom Savini did the special makeup effects for the first Friday the 13th and for part 4, which was supposed to be the final chapter.
Yeah.
6 films later, it really fucking wasn't the final chapter. Now, was it, people? You know,
No, because Hollywood go, it's making money. Keep doing.
To be fair, the studio that owned the rights at the time, I think it was Paramount. The legal side of Friday the 13th is a confusing quagmire we're not going to get into right now.
No.
I know that around about the 3 and 4 were actually meant to be the end ones, because number 3, they wanted to, the axe to the head, definitive, like, no, that's it. He's dead. He's gone. But because of the popularity of number 3, and this is the problem with studios, once they hear popularity, they hear cha-ching and they want more.
Yes, they do.
So they did number 4, and like, this is the final farewell for Jason. We brought back the original makeup effects. We brought back the, all this. We're wrapping up this storyline all in a nice, neat little bow. And as you see from number 5, it was supposed to go off in a different path, but course corrected. But number 4 was supposed to be Jason's final appearance, and he was just some sort of legend, some sort of boogeyman after that. And it didn't pan out that way. They did number 5 with a copycat killer. It didn't get down well. I personally love number 5 because it reminds me of the first one, but told for a new generation, because there's a bit of a gap between storylines and stuff. But then people hated it. It was like, no, it's not Jason. It's not Jason. It's not Friday the 13th. So number 6, they brought him back from the dead. And then from number 6 onwards, we get Zombie Jason, which, to be fair, is my favorite Jason.
Yeah.
I
can imagine you liking Zombie Jason.
My favorite look for Jason, like throughout all of the films, is the part 7 Jason. 2 reasons. One, it's Jason at his possibly most messed up. You can see his spine, a rib cage poking through his back. His face is all gnarled up and shit. It's just, it's so fucking gross.
He's out of kicking.
And it's also the first appearance of Kane Hodder as Jason. So, and I love Kane Hodder. So,
I can see that. For me, I don't know. First favorite look for me is the first one. It's the first one I saw.
Well,
I was like,
it is classic. It is a classic. I mean, I don't know why it's still rated 18, because by today's standards, I think this is like a 15.
Yeah, I would have said.
By today's standards, I mean, when you can watch a film like the Silent Hill films where you see somebody get their skin ripped off and thrown at a church door, and that film's rated a 15.
Things were a lot stricter back in the 80s, Kelly.
Well, they were.
We had Simon Bates telling us about ratings on videos.
Yeah, and that's why we had to rebel. That's why we had to rebel.
Indeed.
But,
I'll always rebel against Simon Bates.
I suppose we're talking about Friday the 13th, and obviously we mentioned Freddy versus Jason. I suppose that leads us nicely into talking about
Frederick
Krueger.
Yes.
Mr. Frederick Krueger, the bastard son of 1,000 maniacs, also the films would say.
Yes.
I don't know how many people actually realize this, but Robert Englund actually makes a cameo out of makeup in quite a few of the films.
Yeah, he does.
I mean, okay, the obvious one is New Nightmare, where cough it up or give it up.
Yep, edit that.
The obvious one, though, is New Nightmare, where he plays himself. I mean, okay, yeah, you obviously get to see him out of makeup and in makeup. Brilliant. But there's a scene, I think it's in, is it number 4? It's number 4 or number 5, where it shows you the flashback of his mum, who was a nun, getting locked in the insane asylum with all the maniacs. And we won't go any further than that with the subject matter. But while it's doing a pan shot around to show you sort of her perspective with all the psychopaths around her, for a brief second, it's almost like fisheye lensed. For a brief second, Robert Englund comes right up to the camera as almost if to say wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and then goes off camera. It's very quick. It's very like blink and you'll miss it, but it's like, okay, I get it. Nice one. Nice tip of the fedora. how we say with Freddy. But yeah, your thoughts on the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise? Come on.
Oh, God, blimey. I saw it when I was a kid because for some reason my parents just let me rent out whatever video, whatever I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for God's sake, I sat and watched Straw Dogs when like 9.
Oh dear.
Yeah. 9-year-old, I'm seeing Sam Peckinpah rape scenes. It's like, oh, fuck.
Oh no, that's a little bit. That's a little bit.
Yeah.
I just need to adjust my volumes 2 seconds. I've realized I didn't do it before we started recording.
But yeah, so I got to pretty much watch what I want because my parents ran a pub, so they were busy and I needed to be entertained.
Fair enough then. Fair enough.
So that was it. Ooh, Freddy, that looks good. Get me that, Dad. No, right.
Oh.
Because I think it's that scene that got it for me originally was remember when Nancy's in the bathroom, the first one, legs akimbo, and the claw comes up.
Yeah. Oh, that still freaks me out now. There's times where if I'm dozing off in the bath, that scene will pop into my head, and it's like, don't fall asleep in the fucking bath, you dozy bitch.
Yeah. Well, plus the fact you could drown as well.
Well, there is that. I mean, for me, one of the standout scenes from the first film specifically is the bit where Johnny Depp, in his first introductory role, it does say if you watch the credits for the first film, introducing Johnny Depp, his first film, and not to be harsh to Johnny, but looking at his acting performance in that film, you can tell.
Well, yes.
Everybody starts somewhere, and he started with a fucking bang.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're going to start Freddy, fuck yeah.
Exactly. I mean,
take that all day.
Exactly. But the scene where he gets sucked through the bed and the blood geyser out of the bed, which, if you know anything about the behind the scenes stuff, we won't go too much into detail with it here, but it was done with a rotating room and barrels of blood, and they made a cock up where they tried to rotate it the wrong way and it got stuck upside down. And Wes was in the filming chair, drenched in fake blood, hanging upside down, not knowing what the fuck was going on. So, yeah, let's face it, by today's standards, that's not the worst thing that's happened to Johnny Depp's bed.
Well, no, that's true. Ooh.
We went there.
Of course we did. We always do.
Oh, shit.
Oh, well. Sue me for what? Oh, God. Callie's gone. Callie's gone.
I made myself crack up there. I'm sorry. Right. Anyway, 80s horror. We've talked about Freddy.
Yes.
We've talked about Jason. Let's flip over and do a hero this time.
Oh.
Let's talk about The Evil Dead.
Yeah.
First released in 1984, the year I was born. So,
make me feel old.
I've just told the internet how old I am, and I don't care. Cool. But yes, Evil Dead was one of those films for me growing up that I always heard talk about on the playground. Oh, my parents have got this tape called The Evil Dead, and they won't let me watch it because apparently it's the nastiest, grossest, horriblest film ever made. Of course, I wanted to see it.
Yeah.
It's the same when my parents were talking to one of their friends about watching The Fly, Jeff Goldblum's The Fly.
Yeah.
As soon as I heard them talking about that, I was like, there's a dude who gets his hand melted with acid, like Alien style. I have to see this. Because to me, Alien, I never saw Alien as a horror film. I saw it as an action film.
Well, that's a discussion for in a bit. Part of drawing that.
We'll
stuff I saw.
We'll get there. We're going in a roundabout way. But anyway, so for me, Evil Dead was just one of those films that you always heard talked about, and for years and years, I never got to see it. And then when I did get to see it, as much as I loved it, a little bit disappointed, purely because I think it's one of those things that you hear so much about it, and people put so much of a spin on it.
Chinese whispers.
It sounds like it. I'll use me and my friends, my gaming friends, get my words out, refer to as the Half-Life 3 analogy. Half-Life 3 will never come out, ever. Purely because the hype train has got it so ramped up that if Valve ever did bring it out, even if it was the best looking, running, playing, narrative-driven game ever made, it would not live up to the hype.
Of course it wouldn't. Never does.
And I think for me, that was what it was with Evil Dead. On the first viewing, I was kind of like, yeah, it was good. Not what I expected, though. But then on rewatching it over the years and looking more into the backstory of it and how it was made, and for its time and the fact that it was made by, bear in mind, people at the time, bunch of no names, guys fresh out of film college, just wanting to do what they're passionate about, which is kind of why we do these podcasts. We're passionate about this kind of stuff. So I get that. And seeing these guys do this kind of stuff is like, well, maybe I can push myself like that and do stuff like that. So it's the backstory to the film is an inspirational story. And I think when they do like biopics, I think Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell, Rob Tapper, all the people involved in that would be a brilliant subject matter. Like cover the history of the Evil Dead from behind the camera, if you get what I mean. Yeah. Something like that. That would be cool to see. It may never happen, but it would be cool to see. But yeah, Evil Dead, that spawned its own trilogy, which is still going strong now. And in fact, this Friday the 13th that just passed, The Evil Dead, the video game, just dropped live on, I think it's PC, PS5, PS4, Xbox, all the Xboxes with the different weird names. Yeah. But from what I've seen, looks good. It's by the people who made Friday the 13th. Looks interesting. I may pick it up at some point. I may not. But yeah, as a franchise, it's one of those ones that started in the 80s and is still there now. Friday the 13th is getting another remake. There's talk of an Elm Street remake. There was one with Jackie Earle Haley playing Freddy, and we got to talk about this quickly, okay?
Right.
I got really, really, really pissed off with the Nightmare on Elm Street remake.
I didn't watch it.
And this may be a sensitive subject to cover within this channel, but I'm going to cover it anyway. Right. The thing about the original Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street films, and the original Freddy Krueger, he was always called a child murderer in those films. He wasn't called a child molester. He wasn't called a pedophile. He was called a child murderer. And it was only ever hinted at that there was a possibility it could be the other two things. It was always left ambiguous. And I think that was Wes Craven's attempt to try and put a little bit of humanity in the character, that maybe he was falsely accused. Okay, you find out in later films that he wasn't. But for the remake to literally just shove it in your face and go, yes, he fucking was. It was just like, it felt a bit heavy-handed to me, like such a delicate subject matter. I get why in the original version it was left ambiguous, because it's like, you're talking about a guy who killed kids. You start talking about other stuff. So for the remake to just literally, like, I think it's about halfway through the film, just literally goes, yeah, look, here's pictures, here's proof. Let's show it to the fucking camera. It was just like, whoa, we don't need that. We didn't need
especially
that.
These days.
Like, we knew the character was bad. We knew he was evil. You didn't need to literally rub our fucking faces in it. And for me, once I got to that scene in that film, I switched it off, because I was like, no, if they're going to make it so like it's the only driving thing behind the character. I mean, it's like with Freddy, you've got to look at it tit for tat. The parents killed him because of what he did to the kids.
Yeah.
And he came back to kill the kids, and then the kids killed him. It's a war of escalation.
Yeah.
And the remake for me just fucked that up. It fucked up from scene one. But sorry, I'm going all over the place with this one. But yeah, I think the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street should just purely be forgotten. Really, it was bad. I'm not saying that Jackie Earle Haley was bad as Freddy, but you take away those dark comedic one-liners, and Freddy just becomes a generic bad guy.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? You got to have that angle of humor.
Yeah, I mean, with these slasher villains that we've talked about, I mean, Jason, he's the slow, get you can't get away from him killer. Just the thump of his feet come along, he's coming. Michael is the silent, stealthy killer, the one that you don't know is there and will just get you out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Freddy's the wisecracker. Freddy's
Exactly.
the mouthpiece. Freddy's the one who wants to have a little bit of fun with you before he kills you. You know what I mean? He's that one who gets inside your head and makes you down, you know, he's playing mind games. Like, perfect example is part 3, where the girls kicked her drug addiction.
Yeah.
And he gets inside her head with that with the needle fingers.
Needles. Yeah.
Yeah. That scene, that shows to me that Freddy can take something you're scared of and warp it to such a sense where it stops being, it's not so much scary, it's more terrifyingly surreal.
Yeah.
Like the track marks on her arms, like suckering.
Yeah.
It was like, like that's body horror levels of weird. And yeah. So I think 80s horror definitely has its stamp, has its mark. Comparing it to modern, I think we should kind of wrap things up now here with modern horror, comparing 80s horror to modern horror. You can go first, Guy, because I got quite a bit to say about this one.
Modern horror, I don't know. I've not been that impressed, I've got to say.
Same.
You know, there's the found footage stuff. There's a Cloverfield type stuff. I don't know. I think I preferred horror in the 80s. Some of the 90s.
I think with me, when it comes to modern horror versus 80s horror, you get stuff like the Netflix recent addition to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series.
Yeah.
I said on Facebook, the only thing I liked about that was in the trailer where Leatherface goes after all the influencers on the bus. And I jokingly said, so if Leatherface just killed a bunch of influencers, does that make him a good guy? Because, I mean, he's doing the world a favor by getting rid of those fuckers.
Yeah, true.
So,
yeah.
But no, I think modern horror has kind of a couple of problems. One is it tries to emulate the 80s stuff. I mean, you just, like I said, you just look at the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's trying too hard to recapture those glory days of the 1980s slasher films.
Yeah.
And I think a big problem with this, and it's not just a problem with horror films, I think, it's a problem with films in general, is there's too much reliance now on CGI than there was practical effects. I mean, back in the 80s, people could react to the monster because it was there in front of them.
Yeah.
You know, there's a famous line. It's not an 80s film, but there is a famous little bit that I've heard about in, it's a crap film, but Alien Resurrection. Towards the end of the film, where the newborn is, you know, getting closer to Ripley.
Yeah.
And its teeth go clack, clack. And Sigourney Weaver, you see her visibly jump back. That was an accident. The guy controlling the jaw, who was supposed to keep it locked in one position, his hand slipped, so the jaw clacked.
Yeah.
And because Sigourney Weaver wasn't expecting it, she jumped, and the director loved it so much because it was so real of a reaction, he kept it in the film.
Yeah.
And that's what my problem is with a lot of modern horror, is it relies too much on CGI limbs getting chopped off, CGI blood, CGI wounds, CGI gore. And it's like, you can do all this stuff practically.
Practical effects is so much better.
I hate to say this, and it's kind of a changing of the tides, but I think practical effects, as much as I love them, I hate to admit it, but they're a dying art.
Well, of course they are. No one can do
it. Studio ADI did a brilliant film a couple of years ago. It goes by a couple of names. I think over here in the UK, it's known as. I can't recall the name of it, but the American version is Harbinger Down. And they actually marketed it as a fully practical effects film.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing an interview with one of the Studio 80 guys. I think it was Alec Guinness. I think is his name.
Guinness.
I think so.
That's Obi-Wan in the original Star Wars.
Yeah. Same name, different guy. I think. I'm not sure. Anyway, point being, you've made me lose train of thought now, guy. Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, he was saying that it's kind of weird to say that in this day and age, like almost like when a film has to promote itself as a stop motion animation film.
Yeah.
You know, like Nightmare Before Christmas had to do in the 90s. He says it's really weird that in the 2000s we're having to promote practical effect films with the same idea and the same moniker of like, look, you don't see this all the time because you really don't. And it's a shame because, again, look at any of these films from the 1980s, all practical effects, all done in camera, all done by people
in the room
with artists who are amazingly fucking talented. People like Tom Savini, people like, is it Phil Tippett or Rob Tappert? One of the two. But them guys, people who did RoboCop, you look at the special effects in that and they're fucking amazing. So the 80s was not only the birthplace of horror for me. You know, we had the black and white Universal monsters, but that was a different kind of horror. That was more,
a different era. That was
more scared of the unknown. This was more scared of what could kill you. You know what I mean? So for me, 80s horror was not just the age of the slasher. It was also the age of the practical effects. So I think that is quite a poignant note to end it on, is that...
It is, indeed.
Go on.
There is one 80s horror I forgot about.
Go on then.
The fucking entire light entertainment department of the BBC. There you go.
There we go. But
now we're getting kicked off. Shit.
Well, yeah.
Luckily, Sel didn't fix it.
I was just going to go on with we've made a nice little poignant note there. How, you know, in 2022 we can look back at the 80s and it was the age of horror. It was the age of practical effects. It was the age of, I think, or the birth of modern day geekdom.
Yes.
Because we had Transformers, we had He-Man, we had all the horror films, we had all of that. Just we look back at the 80s now with such nostalgia. We love it. We love the fucking 80s. Not just because it was a simpler time without smartphones and computers and all that shit, but it was such a creative and inventive time.
Definitely.
Not just culturally, but scientifically and all that shit. So anyway, I have been...
Definitely.
We're going to wrap things up now. Yeah. I have been Callista Valentine.
I've been JB.
And we shall catch you all in the next one. And episode 5, we're going to take a slight little step forward in time. We're going to talk about 80s and 90s cartoons.
Yay!
Get your Timmy Mallets out. We're ready to rock and roll. We'll catch you next time, people. Mwah.
Yeah, take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Hail to the king, baby. Groovy.
I'll swallow your soul!
Come get some good, bad. I'm the guy with the gun.
See this? This is my boomstick!
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.